Hi, folks. Thanks so much for tuning in for this next episode of Creative Psychology with Dr. Doug. And I am Dr. Doug. And today we're going to be talking about radical self-care. It might be a little bit different from what you're thinking it is. But before we go there, if you could comment down below and just let me know what it is about this video that made you stop, as well as any other topics that you might like to hear about in the future. So for now, let's talk about radical self-care. So when I use the word self-care, it's sort of like a hot button topic or a hot button phrase that you hear about a lot, and you've been hearing a lot about for probably years. And I would guess that if I say, self-care, there's some images that immediately come to your mind of like taking time off from work, going for a massage, getting a mani-pedi, going for a walk and exercise, some kind of like really great meal, whatever it might be. And all of these sound luxurious, right? Totally wonderful. And that type of self-care is very episodic or not very frequent, really, because not all of us can take time off from work. Not all of us could jump on a plane to go to paradise, or so the traditional or popular sense of self-care is not really super accessible. And when it is accessible, it's sort of a special occasion, right? And so is there another way that you could be taking care of yourself on a regular basis, not like once every 6 months? And instead, sort of self-caring, I think that is not really a word, but self-caring every single day or close to every single day. That's where the idea of radical self-care comes in. There are little acts of radical self-care pertaining to sort of using your inner strength to do what's best for you. When you find, identify, connect with your inner strength and act on that in a way that is helping you to do what is best for you. So these little acts doesn't have to be huge, doesn't have to be like, I'm going to quit this job because I'm miserable there. Like, that's kind of a big choice, and it's not something that you could do every day. I guess you could leave your job every single day, but you know what I mean. This type of radical self-care can be much harder, right, than the popular sense of self-care. If you want to take time off from work and go for a manicure, then, you just have to ask for time off or save up that money and transport yourself to this place. But what I'm talking about are things that actually involve sort of your inner strength, that these actually tend to be difficult. And you might be asking yourself, like, okay, you're telling me this is called self-care, but it's actually harder than most of the things that I do on a regular basis. And that is true. It's not really straightforward. And the reason why these things are so difficult is because it is sort of causing you to access a part of you that you don't always access, but the outcome or the consequences of acting upon that inner strength is actually much bigger, much more significant, much more long-lasting than a manicure, right? So you go for a little vacation, you take time off from work, and you feel good for maybe a little bit, but you do something like go to your next door neighbor and sort of finally have a conversation with them about, you're really playing music too loud and it's keeping my baby up, which is then keeping me up. And it's sort of really impacting my quality of life. And no matter what the outcome of that conversation is, you've sort of used your inner strength, have put yourself out there, been authentic, made a request, really participated in the world in a way that is trying to pursue something that is good for you, even if, you're sort of afraid of how it might make you look or how it might impact other people. So that's an example of something that it is difficult, but when you do it, the outcome is like, man, I feel strong. I feel much better than I have in a while. I sort of have given myself a voice, put myself out there, not shut myself up, not made myself small, not made my needs second to somebody else, right? So I'm hoping that you can sort of hear how these types of actions can actually make you feel so much better for a very long time. It sort of makes you see yourself in a totally different way when you act in these assertive or self-advocating ways. The second part of this radical self-care is, if you recall the definition of both participating in as well as contributing to the world. So contributing to the world, what we're talking about are little to big selfless acts. So these are things that you do purely to help somebody else out. And those can be tiny little things, or they could be huge things. And, it does not have a size mandate. All of it counts. And all of it has a positive impact on you. So you might be wondering about this, and similar to the other, this is not straightforward, right? Where it's like, okay, now you're saying that in order for me to self-care and do something that's good for me, I have to do something for someone else. Yeah, that's very much what I'm saying. And the reason why selfless acts are acts of radical self-care are because the outcome of selflessness sort of checks off a lot of boxes regarding the things that make us feel good and that help our own sense of well-being. So when you commit selfless acts, what happens is you feel connected to the world, connected to your community. You sort of elevate your own perception of self-worth. You increase the sense of meaningfulness of my life, of there's a reason why I'm here, and I'm actually doing good things while I'm here on earth, right? So meaningfulness, worthiness, and connection, all of those things, if someone were to say, if I could give you a pill that gives you those feelings or those outcomes, would you take it? And I'm guessing so. I think that those are things that almost everybody wants, and a lot of people are lacking. So again, any size. So this could be as small as making a donation or asking your next door neighbor if they need you to pick something up while you're at the grocery store. Or maybe it's a lot bigger. You sort of agreed to volunteer someplace once a week, or to go on some kind of trip to help out a group of people. Whatever it might be, no matter what size, sort of figuring out what will actually fit into your life in a realistic way. So this leads me right into sort of the next point of one main thing that you have to remember is sort of remembering back to that definition, that it bolsters you. Because sometimes people will ask me okay, so let's say the neighbor with the music, right? Neighbor's been playing loud music, so should I go over there and just start screaming at them in order to make them stop? I would be doing that for my benefit. And it's well, that's true. It would be for your benefit, but does it actually bolster you? Does it bring you closer to your ideal? No, not really, because most of us, at least, don't want to see ourselves as jerks. And most of us don't want to destroy relationships with our next door neighbors, right? So you're doing these things in a way that the net outcome is that you feel like, wow, I'm getting really close to being the type of person that I've dreamed for myself, right? So you don't dream of yourself as being a jerk. You might. That was an unfair assumption, but most people don't want to see themselves as jerks. So just remembering that sort of key concept when you're trying to decide whether something is an act of radical self-care or not. So I'm going to flash, hopefully, some examples of what these types of acts might look like, both for the end of doing these acts that are using your inner strength, as well as doing these other acts that are out of selflessness. And, what you could do right now is think about the different realms of your life. Think about how satisfying each of those is. Maybe on a scale of 1 to 10, where 10 is like super satisfying, 1 is really stinks. Asking yourself, like, what are these aspects of my life that I've kept around that are draining me? Sort of the opposite of using my inner strength, right? Instead, these are things that are pulling my strength away. And so when I think about those, what are some little things that I could be doing starting now that would help to sort of reverse that or make that better? And, it could be that there's somebody in your life, let's say there's an aunt or something that you talk with maybe once a month. And you sort of dread talking to them because, you get on the phone and your aunt just, super negative and is just complaining. And it's just, you do not enjoy those calls. And so a little thing that you could do would be, you call your aunt and you immediately start telling a story. So you've sort of taken charge of the topic of conversation. So it might be that then the conversation does shift and goes to sort of the same old, but you have made a little change in that relationship, in that interaction. And that is a fantastic act of radical self-care. So I would love for you, after you watch this video, to just sit down and sort of think about, like, what are the things in my life that are draining me? And what are the things that I could do to actually improve those in little ways? And in addition, what are some little acts of selflessness that I could be incorporating into my life on a regular basis? Thank you so much for joining me for this episode on radical self-care. I would love for you to leave a comment down below. Let me know what you thought of this video, as well as any other topic ideas that you might have. Please don't forget to like and subscribe so that you know about future videos. And as usual, whether we're interacting down below, over on Instagram, or here in my office, I just can't wait to create something with you that brings clarity, connection, and hope. Until next time.